Okay, I've been off for a while, but I'm back and ready to respond to more things I found online. This week, assisted suicide. Oh, this is going to be a somber one, isn't it? Not a lot of wacky bits I can use in end-of-life discussions. As I mentioned before, when it comes down to it, I want the choice to end my life on my own terms. So, let's get watching 5 Reasons Against Euthanasia. As sad as it is, sometimes accidents and disease can put a burden on those around us. I don't want that to happen to me. If anything ever happens that does cause me to be a burden on my family, I don't want to be a hindrance on them. I don't want to be a vegetable that has to be cared for or in constant pain that ends up causing resentment. I want to be remembered by my family as someone whose life ended early, rather than somebody who was an emotional drain on them. But if I was no longer able-bodied, with no chance of recovery, then, by default, I'd be looking at it from that perspective when I made my decision. That perspective would be the one I'm coming from if I determined if I don't want to live my life anymore. However, the choice of what lives are and are not worth living should be left to the person living that life, if they're able to make that decision. And if I'm not able to make the conscious decision that my life is worth living, I don't think it'd be worth living. In theory, that would be great. If any and all diseases and trauma could be cured or dealt with, then yes, there would be no need for any kind of assisted suicide. But that is not the case. Sometimes a person is in a position where no amount of care or therapy can, or ever will, give them the life they want to live anymore. In that case, they should not be forced to endure that. Agreed. If a person is able to live the life they want, they shouldn't have to seek an end to it. But if that treatment is unavailable, and in all likelihood never will be, why should anybody suffering without any kind of relief in sight not be allowed to have a dignified and painless, yet unnatural, death? My family loves me and I love them. I don't want them to be hurt by losing me, but I also don't want them hurt by any theoretical illness or accident that could cause undue burdens on them. I don't want them to remember me living out the end of a miserable life that causes them stress if I can end it on my terms, not leaving them with memories of my degradation. And I'm not saying that therapy or counseling is worthless. Just the opposite. I think it should be required if a patient is asking a medical professional to end their life. Sometimes it can help, and those looking to have their life deliberately ended should talk to a professional before making that decision. It's a monumental choice, and not something to go ahead with lightly. It's interesting that the next part of the code is, a physician shall act in the patient's best interest when providing medical care. Sometimes, and this can be depressing, the choice and the best interest for the patient is not to continue suffering a debilitating condition. It should be noted that almost 90% of doctors do not want to be kept on life support if they end up on it. They, more than anyone else, understand what being in such a predicament would be like and have no desire to go through it themselves. Doctors should always do what is in the best interest of the patient. If the patient wants to go on living, no matter what circumstances they find themselves in, the doctor should respect that and do what they can to prolong the patient's life. But if a patient is in a position they cannot endure, doctors should understand and respect that too. That's fine. If your belief is that you should never under any circumstances end your own life, then by all means follow that belief. But I don't share that. Your religious convictions should have no bearing on how others live their lives. I don't need to eat kosher because some religions hold to it, and I don't feel I need to go on suffering if I found myself in an intolerable situation because of the edict of some religion I don't believe in. Exactly. That should be the individual's choice in the matter. If their quality of life is no longer enough to keep on living, then they can decide they want to end it. And if their belief system has rules on ending their own lives, that should be respected, but not mandatory. Forcing someone to accept something does not give it value. Again, I will respect a person's decision to go on living if they want to, but I would like the same respect if I made the opposite decision. If I did live a life of pain and misery with no chance of reprieve outside of death, I might feel that my life has little value and should not be required to continue it. There's a reason why the slippery slope is a logical fallacy. You could take any idea to an extreme and insane conclusion. For instance, you can't give a child a single piece of candy because next thing you know, they won't eat anything but sweets. Eventually, all food will be replaced with candy, and everyone will have rotten teeth, and the dental lobby will become so powerful they can take over the world! Yes, and I would agree that we should fight against involuntary euthanasia, the murder of an individual who wants to go on living, for the same reason that I argue for voluntary euthanasia. It's taking a person's choice away from them. Now, sometimes a person is not in a position to make that choice. The Terry Schiavo case comes to mind. And that's why I have made it clear to my family what my decision would be in the event I was unable to make that choice myself, and I hope they will respect it. If you haven't made it clear, either way, take the time with your loved ones to discuss what you want in the event you're not able to communicate that decision. You don't want them anguishing over what you would want. Making a choice like that, on behalf of the loved one, is one of the hardest decisions that can be made. Again, a slippery slope argument is a bad argument. Yes, laws need to be in place that ensure that only the individual can make that decision on whether to end their life or not, or the individual's family in the event they cannot make that decision on their own. As I've said before, I'm against mandatory euthanasia, but I don't want my choice taken away from me. Okay, this has been a depressing way to return. Hopefully next time will be a bit more fun. Let's see what we got coming up. Discussing the films of Lars von Trier. Great. If any of you out there has anything more enjoyable to go over, please send it my way.